Blender, let's take a look at how we can add decals to meshes. So this will be the case study. We're going to add the Red Bull over here. This will be a scalable vector graphic, as you can see the file format, SVG. And I will also add this one, so this will be a PNG. The main difference is that in this case, for this logo, if I will zoom in, we're going to see that this will be pixelated. This is because this is a PNG file. But over here for the scalable vector, if I will zoom in onto that, we're going to see that this will be a vector. So regardless of the amount of zooming in, that will remain sharp. The only problem with this logo, as we can see over here, we have some overlapping elements. So over here on the tail of those bulls. Now, let's get started with this. So I will open this car that doesn't have anything added. So, okay, so this is the one that has, so this one. Now, to get started, we need some files. So I will go on the web. And if I will search for Red Bull logo, we're going to find the following logo over here. So if I will click on this, we're going to see that we have the possibility to download this. We can either select a scalable vector, so that is one of those that we can zoom in and it will remain sharp, or we can use a PNG file. So in this case, I will click on the SVG file. We're going to see that this will be different. So we're going to have the logo on top and those bulls over here on the bottom. So I'll just hit download. And we should have that download started. We just need, in this case, on this website, to wait several seconds. And I will show you why I want to use that case study Red Bull logo, because this one that I already have downloaded over here, we see within the preview, it should have this yellow outline. But if I will go in Blender and import that, so this is the original one that I downloaded before, we're going to see that all of those will be added within a separate collection, and I can select that. I can press G in order to move those. So I will select the first one, hold down Shift, select the last curve, and I will move those on the Y-axis. If I press the comma button, we're going to see, so this is the logo that I already applied on the car that was initially loaded, and we see over here that we have some overlapping elements. So we have the possibility to select those and move them if we want to. But in this case, I will just use a different logo. So I will delete this. And I will import the one that I just downloaded. So I will find that within the download folder. This will be CDN logo. I will import that. And we see in this case we have many more curves. So I will select the first one, the last one. Press G to grab those, Y, and move them over here. Afterwards, I will press on the comma. And we're going to see that this logo will now look like this. So let me just select those two bulls and I will slightly move them. So I want those two that are in yellow in this case. And I will slightly move those to minus 0.00001. So in this case, I will need to move them a little bit more. So minus 0.002. And yeah, the logo will look like this. So you see, this is why it's important to make sure that you're going to select the proper logo in this case. Now we have those. The logo is quite tiny, so I can just select that. But if I want to work only with a single element, I can just convert this. So I will right click and I will convert this to a mesh initially. As soon as I'm going to do that, Blender will do a conversion. So visually we don't see anything different, but if I'm going to press tab, we're going to see that we're going to have now geometry in the back over here. And I also want to join all of these together, so select those again. We see the icon, now we're going to have the triangle. Initially we had a curve. Right click and we're going to join them together. And now I can select that and I will press S to scale it. And now I will move it into position. So I want to add that over here to the door. So I will just grab it, put it over here. I want to rotate it, initially on the z-axis minus 90 degree. Afterwards I want to rotate it again, but in this case on the y-axis, again minus 90. And I can move that into position. So I can use the view cube over here in order to jump to various elements, or I can just press the numpad. So in this case, if I press 3, it will give me this right orthographic view. If I'm going to press on 9, that will give me the reverse. And I will just move the logo into position. So let's say that we want to add it somewhere over here. Now, before applying logos, it's important to check the geometry where we're going to apply it. So in this case, if I will select the car, we're going to see that if I'm going to grab it, everything will be joined together. So in order to properly apply this, we're going to need to separate the surface where we're going to apply it. So to do that, I'm going to press tab. This will take me to edit mode. And over here, I can do a selection roughly where I want to add this. So I can use various selection options, but I will do a selection like this. So this section where we have a rectangle, I'm going to select it. I'm going to then press P in order to separate this selection. So if I'm going to press tab and exit that, we're going to see that visually nothing happens, but behind this, we're going to have this geometry that is subdivided over here and separated. So we can just apply this logo onto that surface. Now, with the logo selected, I'm going to go over here within Modify, and within the Modifier panel, I'm going to search for Deform Shrink Wrap. So you can type in shrink, and you can see that this will be shrink wrap. And for the method, I'm going to use a target normal projection. And for the target, I'm going to use this eyedropper, and I'm going to select that surface. And we're going to see how that will be added. In this case, since the surface is flat, it will look like this with an offset of 0. So we have some overlapping with the car color over here. So just add a value over here, for example, 0.02. We're going to see with 0.02, some of the elements are still within that. So slightly change that, 0.05. We're going to see it will look like this. If I'm going to rotate around, it will look like that. So you can also slightly increase this value. If you're going to hold down the left click, you can also move it around. And we have over here some problems, since all of those meshes have been set to the same level. You can also go, for example, in this case, to project. And we're going to see how the project will look in this case. We're going to have some vertices over here that look a little bit odd. So just disable that positive. And yeah, with an offset of 0.9 in this case, it will look like that. So project onto surface, the target. Let me just reapply that target to look like this. So if I'm going to zoom in somewhere over here, it will this will be the overall look. But if I will move a little bit closer, we're going to see that actually that is quite offsetted. So we see over here we have a big gap. So we can just grab that and slightly move it a little bit back. So something like this. If you are mostly going to go for a render, something that is like this, it will look like it has been applied over there. But we can still further move this, for example, near a surface point, and you see that difference between those two. Okay, so between project, it was like that, and with near a surface, we have the mesh that follows now the curvature of the car. And we can slightly move it on the x-axis, and that will stretch it on the z in this case. So just slightly increase that offset value, maybe 0.05. And afterwards, we still have all of those meshes that are being overlapped now. So we see that those bulls will look like this. This is because all the meshes are within the same element. And we can also do, I will press Tab, A, P, and I will select everything by the material. Because in this case, I will be able to only select the bull over here, so I can move that around. And I can also press, I want to apply this modifier, so just for the bull. And afterwards, if I will just drag it a little bit on the x-axis, I will move it to be in front. And I will do the same over here. If I will just try to move this over here, as you can see, even though I'm pressing G and X, this will actually go up and down, not on the Z-axis, because we need to also apply this modifier before we can move that. And I will just slightly move that bull over here. And we're going to see how that will look. We have over here a little bit of some weird lines. So this is the main drawback if you are working with vectors. For this same case study, we can actually use a PNG file. And mostly it's recommended to use PNG files because it will be a lot easier. So I'll just have this downloaded over here. I will just stop that, that add. And let's see, in a few seconds this should be downloaded. And we're going to see now how we can also apply a PNG. And I highly recommend you to use PNG files. So we have that already loaded. I'm going to go onto the other side of the car. I will press again Tab in order to go to edit mode. And I will separate the same area onto this side. Press P, selection. And now I will add that over here. So in order to do that, I have some weird geometry going on over here. Let me just undo that. So we see that that has already been added over here to the car, so by default. I'm just going to ignore it for now because our main purpose over here is to apply those logos. I'm just going to select that. Now, in order to add the PNG files within the newer version of Blender, so 4.21, I can just add an image, and we're going to have directly over here a mesh plane. And this mesh plane I will select from download, and I will select that newly downloaded element, which will be this one. So import that, move it, and this will be the logo. So again, I'm going to rotate it once on the Z-axis, 90, afterwards on the Y, 90. Go to the side view, position the logo, scale it a little bit. So I want to add it like this, and now I'm just going to move it into position. And we see the logo over here. If I will press Tab, we're going to see the plane that is currently used to project this, and this will not have any subdivision, and we need to subdivide this in order to apply it. So I'm just going to right click, subdivide once. I'm going to do this several times until we're going to have a little bit more mesh, so something like this, even one more time. And afterwards we can apply the same modifier. So for this one I'm going to go to search, and I will apply a shrink wrap modifier, and I want this to be projected onto that, that surface. So let me just select the surface that is behind. And for the offset value, we are going to go with a 0.01. And you can see in this case how that PNG will be applied. And the main difference between the SVG and the PNG file is that over here we're going to have a single color. But the main drawback is that if you are not going to use a high resolution PNG, it will become quite fast, quite pixelated. But in this case, we see that this PNG file has more than sufficient details. And at the end, if I'm just going to deselect everything, we're going to see how that will look. So we see the difference between those two. They are not the exact same layout. We see over here those two bulls are a little bit larger, while over here we're gonna have it like this. If the text is a little bit wrapped over here, we can also go and change various elements over here. For example, project will look like this, or nearest vertex, or normal tangent. And we see the difference like over here for the B with the target normal and with the nearest surface. This one is a little bit deformed, so we see that B. So it's better to go with a target normal projection, because now we're going to have that logo a lot better positioned. We can just move this, but keep in mind that if you're going to move it over here, it would be recommended, if you want to have that wrapped over here on this curvature, to also have that separated within the same mesh over here. Otherwise, it's better just to sit over here, and you can also scale in and out. Now, I'm going to apply an additional logo over here. This will be this one. So this is a bank logo. So I would like to add it over here into this section. So I'm just going to select the mesh, press tab. I will select the area that I want to separate. If you want to remove from the selection, you can just hold down Control, select elements that you no longer want to have added. So let's say that this will be the position, press P, selection, and we're going to have this surface over here. You can also give it a name. This is, we're going to see my car body. You can press F2. I call this beautiful place, because this will be, I'm going to add that logo. So I already have this downloaded. This is a PNG file. If you want to maybe get a JPEG file and you're going to have a background, you can use GIMP, for example, in order to remove that. And I also have a video regarding that. But in this case, if I will load that, so I'm not going to go to import, because I'm not going to add this as a vector. I will just press Shift A, image, mesh plane, and I already have that on desktop, which will be this one. So have that imported, have that moved within the desired position. So like this, I'm going to rotate it on the z-axis -90. Afterwards on the y, again -90. Okay, so, and I will just move that within position. We see that it's currently tilted. So let me just go over here within the item and -180, 90, -180. And in this case, if I will rotate this on the x-axis, I will rotate it 90 degrees, and afterwards I will just remove it to be like this, so -90, so that the logo is not backwards. Now I will press 3 over here, and I will just move this within zero position, and afterwards I will move it to the exterior. I will scale it a little bit so it will be able to wrap over there. And now the same principle, press tab, subdivide this, so subdivide it multiple times, something like this. And afterwards just apply a shrink wrap modifier, and we're going to select that surface. So we see that in this case, with the nearest surface, it will look like this, with an offset of 0.1. So we see those wrapping over there, not well defined. And again, we're going to go with target normal, and we're going to see how that will be added. And we can further center this. And if I'm just going to press G in order to grab it, we're going to see how we actually can move this around. So I add it somewhere over here, maybe scale it a little bit. Afterwards, I can deselect that. And we're going to see how that will look. Okay, so this is how you can add both SVG files and also PNG files within Blender without having to use any add-ons, because there are quite a lot of tools that make this a lot easier, and you can also add additional customization, but I encourage you to use the default elements since you don't need any additional paid assets and plugins. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this kind of content. I will position a similar logo over here on the left side, and I will also add a subscribe button to the right. So that's it. Thanks for watching.